Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, everybody, for coming. For those of you on social media, my outfit is actually white and gold.
I heard about
For those of you not on social media, have somebody explain to you what the heck I'm
They
talking
actually
about.
confirmed that it was blue and black.
Okay, so really what I'm here to do today is I'm just going to give the briefest of little talks. I'm going to do a short reading just of the prologue from Dorothy Parker Drank here, and then I'm going to take your questions. Because for me, the give and take with you guys is the most fun and enjoyable part for both me and for you. So, like I said, I'm just going to keep my remarks really brief. Who here is actually has some familiarity with Dorothy Parker? Okay, so pretty much everybody. But what I'd like to do is just give a little bit of background so you could just sort of understand why she's famous, for anybody who doesn't have a real solid understanding of Dorothy Parker. I do want to read you first. Oh, but does anybody here have like a favorite Dorothy Parker quote? Does anybody,
The end-to-end one.
Oh,
Lay them
if
in
all
there.
the girls who attended the Yale prom were laid end to end, I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Dorothy, yeah. Pearls before swine, that's right.
You have to remind me of it. I only know that it's some fancy terrible with raisins in it.
Right.
was
This
really-
book wasn't just terrible, this was fancy terrible, this was terrible with raisins in it, yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
Men seldom make passes.
It's actually a poem called News Item, Men Seldom Make Passes at Girls Who Wear Glasses. And Donna actually got it right, because she said seldom. A lot of people think
Seldom.
it's
I remember
never.
being
It's
corrected.
seldom, yeah. She remembers being corrected, not by me. Well, maybe
No.
by me. Anybody else have a favorite Dorothy Parker quote?
Yes.
Her review of Winnie the Pooh was constant
Reader flowed up, right. She was no fan of whimsy, that's for sure. Alexandra?
You can bring a horticulture, but you can't make
Thank
good
you.
thing.
That's right. Right, when she was asked to use horticulture in a sentence, yeah.
What about drinking and being under the host or something?
Yeah, one more drink and I'd be under the host. Yeah. It's interesting because there's a little verse that a lot of people, that ends something like that, and a lot of people think that everybody thinks Dorothy Parker wrote that verse, and there's almost no evidence to prove that she did. But she did actually use that line, one more drink and I'd have been under the host. So I'm going to tell you one of my favorite lines, which is, I do know it by heart, but I'm going to, so I don't get any words wrong. If you have any young friends who aspire to become writers, the second greatest favor you can do them is to present them with copies of the Elements of Style. The first greatest, of course, is to shoot them now while they're happy. So I love to read that because it's clearly a little bit too late for me, but I am happy. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very grateful to Book Revue for having me. I'm very grateful to each and every one of you for coming out on this icy cold night and braving those icy sidewalks. So it's fantastic to see everybody. Okay, so Dorothy Parker's connection to fame started really, a little bit of background you should know. Dorothy Parker's formal schooling ended at age 14. She dropped out of school at age 14 and never went back. So when she was a very young woman, she was working at a piano. She was working as a pianist in a dance hall, in a dance studio. Dance fever was sort of hitting the nation back then. It was 1914, and that's what she was doing for a living. And she was submitting poems to Vanity Fair magazine. And one of her poems actually got accepted. And this gave her the gumption to put on her best little suit and hat and go to Vanity Fair and go to the publisher, whose name was Frank Crowninshield, and ask for a job. He was very impressed with this young lady. He didn't have anything at the time, but a few months later he called her back and said there was a position open for a caption writer at Vanity Fair's sister publication, Vogue. So Dorothy Parker then got a staff job at Vogue. A couple of years later, she was moved to Vanity Fair, and then that fall, she was made the theater critic of Vanity Fair. She was an immediate, resounding success. Her voice was so brash, so harsh, so shocking, so audacious that she instantly became famous, the toast of the town, quoted all over New York. She was 24 years old. And that was when her career really started to take off. Shortly after that, she got an invitation to a luncheon at the Algonquin Hotel. There was another theater critic named Alexander Woolcott, and two publicists were throwing a party for him at the Algonquin Hotel. So Dorothy Parker was invited along with other writers and notables of the jazz era. And so she went to this luncheon and brought along her two office mates. Their names might sound familiar to you, Robert Sherwood and Robert Benchley. And by the end of that luncheon, everybody had agreed that they had so much fun that they should do that more often, in fact, every day. And that's what happened. They started to meet for lunch at the Algonquin Hotel every day. And the manager of the Algonquin got wise to the fact that this was fantastic for publicity, and very soon moved the whole luncheon to a round table in the middle of the hotel. And then they became known as the Algonquin Round Table from then on. So that was Dorothy Parker's rise to fame, and it went from there. Why did I want to tell you all of this? Because pretty much all of the action in Dorothy Parker Drank Here takes place in the Algonquin Hotel. This is not historic fiction. This is a contemporary novel. I have Dorothy Parker resurrected as a ghost, hanging out at the Algonquin Hotel looking for friendship, looking for somebody to have drinks with. So I'm going to read to you now from the prologue, which sort of sets up the whole magic, the magical realism element of how Dorothy Parker comes back to life. So without further ado.